Julius Caesar, the great military and political figure of Rome, is indeed the one who laid the foundation for the mighty Roman Empire's future development. If you've watched the previous video, you probably already know that Julius Caesar achieved remarkable feats from a young age and became one of the most respected figures in Rome at that time. But how long did he manage to retain that glory? Why did a great figure like him have to endure such a painful and humiliating death? You will see the surprise at the end of this video. The Roman Civil War. After Pompey's betrayal and the collapse of the First Triumvirate, Julius Caesar realized that it was time to reform and cleanse Rome. In 50 BC, the Senate, led by Pompey, ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome, claiming that his term in Gaul had ended. They even propagated that Caesar had abused his power, treated the poor and vulnerable poorly, and was planning further military campaigns. This led to Caesar being barred from running for the position of dictator. He was even isolated from political and military life, accused of insubordination and plotting a rebellion. These false accusations occurred not just once, but over an extended period. Because of this, Julius Caesar decided to punish those who were deceiving the people and conspiring against his kingdom. On January 10, 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, roughly the border of modern-day Italy, with only one Roman legion, equivalent to about 5,000 troops. He initiated a civil war. When crossing the Rubicon, Caesar famously said, "The die is cast," affirming his commitment to the conflict. If he won, he would seize power in Rome and become a national hero. If he lost, he would become a traitor, facing humiliation and possibly death. The Roman legionaries under the command of Caesar were trained professionally and proficiently, incredibly brave and battle-hardened. To them, the enemy was nothing more than children demanding to wear armor and go to the battlefield. Caesar's battle-hardened troops swiftly advanced southward in Rome, where each line of defense constructed by the Roman authorities was crumbling one after another. Wherever Caesar went, the forces of the Optimate surrendered. At this time, the people of Rome, full of praise for him, saw him as the one who would lay a solid foundation for the future Roman Empire. Meanwhile, the Optimate and their armies had to flee to the south. Caesar's forces relentlessly pursued them for months, but then he proactively proposed a peace treaty with the aristocracy. This further endeared him to the people, who viewed him as God figure in human form, a leader full of stern, yet equally compassionate. After over 60 days of marching, he no longer had any remaining adversaries to defeat. Julius Caesar returned to Rome in the glow of victory, holding all the power of Rome in his hands. In the position of the head of a mighty empire, his entire talent was revealed. Under Caesar's leadership, Rome began to exert significant influence over Egypt and the regions of Asia Minor, seen as the cradle of human civilization. During this time, some remnants of the aristocratic forces secretly plotted to regain power. But this was nothing less than their rejection of Caesar's final act of mercy. Thus, he had to lead his army to quell the rebellion and achieved resounding victories. From that moment on, Rome entered an era of remarkable development. The Roman reforms. In September 45 BC, Caesar officially returned to Rome after thoroughly suppressing the remnants of opposition forces. Successful individuals often have their unique ways. While others might return to solidify their power, Caesar began by drafting his will to pass on titles to his descendants. Indeed, Caesar did not need to seek power. Power gravitated towards him. Even though the leading members of the Senate didn't favor Caesar, they had to personally transfer power to him after witnessing the brutal purges. Although there were still some who continued to resist, there were no significant uprisings. One of the first significant decisions upon Caesar's ascent to power was to mint new coins bearing his image. This was an unprecedented practice in Roman history. Following this, a comprehensive reform was initiated across various aspects of Roman life, including the economy, culture, politics, religion, and education. Under the backing of Julius Caesar, Rome made remarkable progress and became a formidable force feared by the entire world at that time. However, during this period, Caesar was still seen as a dictator since he left his consulship without undergoing the customary election process by the Senate and the people. Although he had theoretically relinquished power, everyone understood that all the authority of Rome still rested in his hands. Caesar was beloved and revered by the Roman people to the extent that even after his death, they erected a temple in his honor known as the Temple of Caesar, and he was referred to with the epithet Divus Julius, or Julius the Divine in Latin. In response to the people's adoration, Julius Caesar once again returned to the political arena. At this point, Caesar held absolute power, both politically and militarily. A series of progressive reforms were introduced, further propelling Rome's extraordinary growth. Social vices were Caesar's top target for eradication. He enacted a law that prohibited Roman citizens aged 20 to 40 from leaving Italy for more than 3 years unless they were in the military. This measure boosted agricultural production and provided a large labor force for commerce. A quarter of the national debt was forgiven, and price controls on food source were implemented. He strictly forbade any individuals, no matter how capable, from accessing this vital food source. All of this making Caesar a revered figure in the eyes of the people. One of his greatest reforms, which had a profound impact on humanity, was the establishment of a year with 365 days and a leap year with 366 days every 4 years. To implement this reform, Caesar extended the year 46 BC to 445 days. This laid the foundation for the development of the Gregorian calendar that we use today. This was a period when Rome entered a splendid era throughout its history. However, the significant reduction in various taxes and the construction of public works, along with the granting of exemptions, caused a considerable deficit in the treasury. This had a significant impact on the interests of those in power in Rome at that time. Therefore, plots against Caesar once again emerged. The mystery death of a genius. In public, the Senate lavished praise upon Caesar, but behind his back, they secretly formed an organization called the Liberators with the aim of overthrowing Caesar. The main reason behind the planning of this dreadful assassination plot was Caesar depleted the national treasury and the Senate's fear that he might unleash a brutal purge to establish a dictatorship. In the early months of 44 BC, as Caesar's reputation continued to soar and he received the title Dictator Perpetuo in Latin, meaning eternal ruler, this was the last straw that prompted the Senate to begin planning the assassination of Caesar. On March 15, 44 BC, a group of senators summoned Caesar under the pretext of needing him to attend an important meeting related to national matters. However, all of this was a ruse and a trap. Caesar was extremely subjective when he went there alone without his bodyguards, despite one loyal bodyguard of his having noticed something unusual and intending to follow him. However, he was intercepted by the Senate's guards. Caesar entered the Pompey Theatre alone. While he was objecting to the opposing views of the senators, Servilius Casca suddenly approached and grabbed Caesar's cloak, then slashed Caesar's neck. Caesar, enraged, turned to seize Casca by the throat. Casca, panic, called out for his fellow conspirators in Greek, "Come, all you different spirits, help me." Immediately, the entire group of senators rushed to attack Caesar. Caesar attempted to escape, but his eyes blurred due to blood, and his long robe caused him to stumble and fall. In total, more than 60 people were involved in the plot to assassinate him, and he was stabbed a total of 23 times. The life of a greatest figure ended in this manner. Later on, this horrific assassination was recognized by historians as one of the darkest events in human history. After the assassination, the senators fled the building, shouting freedom 3 times in succession to signify that the decision to assassinate Julius Caesar was a liberation for the people and the Roman nation. However, the death of Julius Caesar turned Rome, which was on a path of development, into chaos. Just 1 year later, a civil war erupted, erasing all the lifelong efforts of Caesar. Rome once again entered a dark period. considered the greatest genius of Rome. His reforms laid a solid foundation for the mighty Roman Empire to exist for 200 years in history. The influence of Roman civilization spread to Gaul in the north, became the Byzantine Empire in the east, and extended throughout the Mediterranean region. His life became a legend that would be remembered for generations to come.